Hey, this is Randy. Hey, are you with a sex addict? Are you married to one or in a long-term relationship with someone who you think is a sex addict? Has this sex addict gone to any kind of treatment? Well, first of all, they probably don't want to go to treatment because they're going to convince you that this is normal behavior. That every guy does it and every guy wants it and it's normal. And you know what? I don't care if 95% of guys do it. If they're all sex addicts, it's still hurtful. Any way you look at it. It doesn't matter if it's common or not common. That is not an argument for a sex addict saying that the behavior is fine and you just need to accept it. Has he gone to some kind of counseling or therapy or gotten into some kind of program for sex addicts? And then you've been made responsible to be his babysitter? Have you been kind of brought in, re-victimized by the sex addicts therapists or their team of therapists, somehow made to feel that now you're responsible for everything, the way that you act, the things that you do this, do that, don't do this, make sure you don't do this, or do this, or help him keep track, help him this, help him that. So you're going to be given this prescription, and correct me if I'm wrong, about what you're supposed to do. And I'm telling you right now, you can't live by those directions, first of all, because it involves emotions. Second of all, you are not his live-in therapist. If this team of sex addiction therapists are trying to make you as his partner their eyes and ears away from the therapy couch, their eyes and ears back at home. And yes, you are the eyes and ears in terms of being able to, I guess, rat on the sex addict when he's lying. But is this really what you want to do? Is this really the role that you want to take as like co-babysitter, co-therapist for your sex addicted spouse or live together partner? Is this really what you want? Have you checked into the relapse rate or the rate of cure? How often does a full-blown sex addict who gets treatment, do they relapse? How long does it take for them to relapse? When is the next shoe going to drop for you? Have you been taught that you're supposed to just forgive and forget, or forgive and set all these boundaries and work on the relationship? And if you do this and that, then maybe he won't do this or that? Or, are you taught that you should be walking on eggshells around the sex addict? Because basically, if they're trying to make you a objective therapist and their eyes and ears at home, when that's not what you are, and you're not being paid for that, and it's humanly not possible, then I would not buy some of the crap that you may be getting from the sex addicts therapists or treatment team. Now, yes, they're employed to help the sex addict, correct? But they're not really employed to help you or your best interest. If you tell them your best interest is to stay with your husband and that he stops his antics and, somehow recovers from his sex addiction, well, you should find out first how likely that is to occur, and not necessarily by the statistics that the therapy or the treatment place gives you, but by some real statistics, by some real people. Talk to some people who have gone through it. What was the real success rate that they found? What did they have to go through? If they had to do it again, would they do it again, or would they just leave the sex addict? Sooner the better. Was it worth it for them to go through all that? Was success really achieved? And second of all, the treatment team will say that they have your best interest in mind also, because you want to stay with the sex addict and you want him to stop. But you only want to stay with him if he stops. So you need to pay attention to what those statistics are, those rates of success, and not the ones that are just made up by the treatment team, you know, as their kind of pamphlet, their selling point about what their success rate is. First of all, you can't believe those statistics. You also have to realize that, like a lawyer, their patient is that sex addict. Yes, they're working on having him stop, but they are climbing a very, very steep hill. And they're actually soliciting your help and support as part of the therapy team, which you have no business doing. You're not getting paid. You're emotionally involved. It's not your role to be his mother, his babysitter, his reporter. And when the therapy team makes you that in order to help him, yes, it's with his best interest in mind, but is it in your best interest truly? Is this really what's best for you? Would your personal therapist say that this is what something that you should be doing is babysitting and continuing to put yourself through new discoveries, re-victimization all the time, constant relapses? Go no contact with the sex addict just like you go no contact with your narcissist. These two diagnoses, narcissistic personality and sex addiction, they're practically the same diagnosis. The narcissist just has additional problems added on, and so does your sex addicted spouse, probably. Okay, there does seem to be more treatment available for sex addicts, but that's just because it follows the same playbook as addiction therapy for any kind of addict, for any kind of addiction, except it's just tweaked toward sex rather than whatever other addiction therapy there is. And I'm not saying that those therapies are useless. I'm just saying they have a low success rate. Overcoming addiction is so difficult. It's much more difficult than people understand, I think. And it's very frustrating to be a therapist. I would never be a sex addiction or any kind of addiction counselor, because you get very little rewards from that because you see very little success. But they're not necessarily going to tell you that as the spouse, because yes, they want people to be successful. But what I'm saying is they do not have the spouse's best interest in mind personally and emotionally. They have a vague sense of the spouse's best interest in terms of the fact that the spouse is saying she wants her husband to change and she would like to stay with him if he does. So I hope I'm clear here. I'm not against addiction counseling and treatment for addiction. I'm just saying it has a low success rate, and the people and the family still suffers just as bad throughout treatment as they do with no treatment of their supposed loved one. And if you have no blood shared with this person, if you have no children with this person. You should take the advice that we give the victims of narcissistic abuse, which is to plan your escape and go no contact. If they do change later on, they truly weren't a narcissist and they do overcome their addiction at some later point while they're by themselves working on this horrible, horrible journey that they have in front of them, then fine, you can reassess it at a later date. But why waste your time and energy on somebody who's pretty much a lost cause and they're working against all odds to actually overcome their addiction? And don't let them fool you when they replace their addiction with a different addiction. That's not being cured. That's just replacing one addiction with another. Okay? So, thanks for listening, guys. Have a great day.